to prepare this presentation on this simple topic.
Maybe move that a bit closer. We can always turn that to the next slide.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Okay.
Not very well, not very well. It's very low.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's better.
Is it?
Okay.
Okay. No, it's okay. Good. So I hope you can hear me now. So I was asked to give a presentation on carbon offsetting, which is quite a broad, difficult topic to present in a short period of time. And I decided to start with the basics, if I can. Okay. With the carbon cycle. I guess some of you, because you are here, you know what the carbon cycle is. But it is important to remember that carbon is around us and moves around us, moves from the atmosphere to plants attached to O2 to create carbon dioxide. And through photosynthesis, it moves into the plants. And then the carbon moves from the plants to the animals, and then from the animals to the soil when animal and plants sometimes die. And with that, carbon can also be re-emitted as a CO2 from the soil and through respiration from plants and animals. But carbon also moves from the fossil fuels to the atmosphere and to the oceans. And greenhouse gases are part of, CO2 is one of the greenhouse gases. And I put these on here to just show you that they act as a layer to make our world worth living, because they keep the temperature on a state that we can actually not freeze, because otherwise this is more or less the idea that will happen if there is no greenhouse gas around.
Marta, I apologize for interrupting. My name is Jeff. I'm doing the online moderation on behalf of all the attendees online. Are you expecting to share your slides with those watching online?
I am actually. I thought I was. Sorry.
I thought I did that, Jeff. But my fault, Jeff.
That's okay. We got it sorted. Thank you.
Can you? Okay. Yeah, but look,
Yeah, just move down.
there's a way to minimize it, but I forget.
No, put it on top. It's better. So I have stuff on.
Actually.
Oh, so you missed this picture. So the idea was to show you that. Let me see if I can use it. To show you that the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stop some heat from escaping back to space, and without them, the globe will freeze. So they're actually important for our lives. But what happened is that the too much is creating problems, because the CO2 concentration, the optimum level to sustain Earth, should be below 315 ppm, which is part per million. And with the industrial revolution, we saw a massive increase in CO2 concentration in the atmosphere. And the atmosphere has not held this much carbon for at least 420,000 years, according to data from ice cores. So it is quite a lot of time since we never saw this increase, and we don't know if that can be sustained. So what companies and individuals can do, I call it like mitigation hierarchy. I don't know if that's something that happens in companies as well, but I guess there is there are steps that can we take to mitigate the impact of greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 emissions. We can avoid them. We can minimize when we see where they come from. We can reduce the impact. We can rehabilitate or restore habitats, and we can offset. And basically, offsetting is, in this idea, is the last chance, from my perspective, where we can have steps before offsetting. But if offsetting is needed, offsetting is what balance out the emissions produced, the CO2 produced, with the carbon footprint. And this can be done by individuals. For example, if we take a flight from Manila to El Nido, we can calculate how much emissions do we produce, and we can decide to plant trees instead to compensate, to offset that amount of CO2 that has been produced because of our trip. Companies do something similar. If organizations want to offset greenhouse gas emission that could not be reduced directly, they can invest in projects. And these projects generally are restoration, reforestation projects, projects on renewable energy, methane capture, and so on. There are many projects. I want to focus on two type of offsetting methodology. I use these terms removal and offsetting maybe interchangeably, but in a way this is similar. We have two ways of offsetting or removing carbon from the atmosphere: technological offsetting and natural offsetting. The technological offsetting is basically taking carbon and put it somewhere and store it mechanically somewhere. This is direct air capture. And it is very expensive. It's something that is new. It's in progress. It has its ups and downs and pros and cons, but is direct and immediate. We have what is called BECS, which is kind of an hybrid offsetting methods, because we have bioenergy that produce energy, of course, and carbon capture and storage paired with bioenergy. Then we move to the natural methodologies, which are the one that I will focus more. And those are all methods that rely mainly on forests, so afforestation and reforestation, but also soil carbon and ocean fertilization. So these methods, I listed some of here. They are the core of most of offsetting projects. And the idea here, the basic idea in all of these projects or in all of these methods is to increase the amount of carbon that is entering in the system and store it in the system and keep it there as long as possible. In some cases, stored in biomasses, in other cases in the soil, or both of them. So, I mean, so far what I said seems like, okay, we emit CO2. We take this CO2 by technology or by natural projects, and we store this carbon in the deep underground, in the oceans, in the soil, in the biomass. We put it there, nature does that. We also have co-benefits like biodiversity, adapting on climate change. What's the problem on that? I mean, job done, should be done. But It's not that easy because not that easy. It is easy, but there are several different aspects that we need to take into consideration. And I've listed few of them because there are many. And one is called leakage or displacement of emissions. So let's say a farmer takes some incentives, so money, to stop cutting on a plot. So he gets this money and doesn't cut any trees for 5 years. But what happens is that it says, okay, but I get the funds, I get the incentives for this plot, but not for the other plot that I have. And I cut it. I cut it because I need the wood. So the effect, after all, is zero in terms of CO2 emissions. It's like, and even more, if he used that money for buying a chainsaw and cut in another plot the trees to put more cows, to have more pasture because he needs to produce more milk or meat, well, leakage may exceed 100% of the mitigation. So basically, it didn't work. It didn't work, but it can work. It can work in the case that in these plots, the farmers uses these plots as tourist spots. It can create more biodiversity. It can plant even more tree. And in that case, yes, there is an offset, but this is to show you that needs to be carefully planned. Another example is the non-permanence or reversibility. I told you before that most of these methodologies to remove carbon from the atmosphere is based on inputs into the system. And in most of the cases, these inputs goes into the soil and stays into the soil. And this is all good if we have an input that stays incrementally higher over time. But if there is a new management or a new land use or any action that reduces that input to the soil, then that carbon is lost because the composition increases compared to the amount of input that goes into the soil. So it's reversible. So you can increase the carbon content into the soil in this example, but you can lose it very quickly. And for instance, in this example, this is an old study. I think it was from Pete Smith. I forgot to put the citation on this. It shows the total soil organic carbon at the top 23 centimeter soil layers. And this was a cropland, okay? And this is the carbon in the past. At a certain point, there was a management change. So the blue line is woodland. So part of the cropland has been converted into forest. And you can see an increase in soil organic carbon until a certain point where there is a conversion again to low input cropland. And therefore, the soil organic carbon drastically goes down and it lost from the system. And it goes down, it means that it goes up again in the atmosphere. And in the case of the red line, that's a manure treatment. So there was a change in management, and there was a change in management in terms of manure application. And you can see that there was an increase in soil carbon at a certain point, and then some changes in between, because maybe in 1 year applied more, 1 year applied less manure. And then again, with the conversion, again, with low input cropland, it went down again to values that are close or even lower than the initial soil organic carbon. And then there is the impact or the importance of the land use change, the effect of land use change to, in this case, soil carbon sequestration. And I don't know if this picture, I thought it was clear, but now I'm looking at it and maybe it's not that clear. The arrows represents increase the green ones or decrease the orange ones in soil carbon when there is a change in land use from, for instance, wetland to cropland. There is a reduction of about 25% of soil carbon. Basically, what I wanted to show here is that the only land use change that has a positive impact on soil and soil carbon sequestration is from cropland to grassland or cropland to forest. But any other change can be detrimental for the accumulation of carbon in the soil. And this is a last example, still on soil carbon sequestration, because I wanted to show you the graph on this left-hand side represents the above ground carbon sequestration rate. So it's carbon of tons of carbon per hectare per year, while on the right-hand side, you have the soil carbon sequestration rates. This represents an implementation of agroforestry. So again, there was a change in land use management in this case. And what I wanted to show you is that the sequestration rates drastically drops after 10 years, at least on the above ground side of it, and becomes quite stable and quite low after 10 years and for about 50 years. And this is maintaining exactly the same structure, so the same soil type, the same agroforestry, the same climate, which is unlikely. And for soil carbon sequestration, it more or less happens the same, but there is first a bit of ups and downs because there is a change in management which affects the soil carbon directly, like disturbance, but more plant input going into the soil. So there was then an increase in soil carbon sequestration. But then again, after 20 years, we're talking about not 10 minutes, not like technology storing like carbon in 3 seconds. Well, I'm saying 3 seconds, but it's not, but very quickly. This happens in like 20 years times. It gets to a stable condition where it doesn't increase the soil carbon sequestration rates. It stays in the soil as long as the management and all the environmental conditions will remain the same. Otherwise, it most likely will be lost again into the atmosphere. So I put together some take-home messages here that natural carbon offsets focus on protecting or enhancing the natural processes that offset carbon. The natural carbon removal methods exist and they are in place, and we'll see some examples as well, but offsetting does encourage improved carbon policies and implementation of them where there previously was none. Carbon offset will not solve climate change alone. And because climate offsetting does not encourage polluters to stop producing greenhouse gas emission. It is just an offsetting of what has been produced already. And with that, I think, I don't know with time, but I am done. Thank you for your attention.